Hello friends. In November 1971, a Northwest Orient Airlines flight took off from Portland, Oregon for a short 30-minute journey to Seattle. There were only 36 passengers and 6 crew members on board. However, these passengers were unaware that a hijacker named D.B. Cooper was among them. He looked like a regular businessman dressed in a suit, a white shirt, and black pants, and he appeared to be in his mid-40s. He chose to sit in the last row of the plane in seat 18E. Once the plane took off, Cooper introduced himself to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. He handed her a note which she initially thought was an attempt to flirt with her. But when Cooper insisted she read it, he revealed that he had a bomb. When Florence opened the note, it clearly stated in neat handwriting, "Miss, I have a bomb in my briefcase, and I want you to sit by me." Shocked but still skeptical, Florence sat next to him. To prove he was serious, Cooper opened his suitcase, revealing red cylinders, wires, and a large cylindrical battery. It was clear that he indeed had a bomb. Cooper then made his demands. He wanted $200,000 in cash by 5 p.m. that evening, along with 4 parachute tests for the front and 2 for the back. He also insisted that a fuel truck be ready to refuel the plane upon landing. Meanwhile, the other passengers remained blissfully unaware of the hijacking, and Florence didn't want them to panic. She quietly went into the cockpit and showed the pilots Cooper's note. Another flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, was informed about the situation and sat next to Cooper to help maintain communication between him and the pilots. The pilots quickly informed the air traffic controller, and soon the news reached the airline president, Donald Narab. He was faced with a critical decision and decided that the airline should comply fully with Cooper's demands to avoid a public relations disaster. To facilitate this, the airline coordinated with the FBI and arranged for the money to be prepared by a bank in Seattle. This bank had a special bundle of cash set aside for emergencies. The president's decision to cooperate with the hijacker stemmed from a desire to protect the airline's reputation. He feared that news of the hijacking could lead to significant financial losses. However, they needed time to gather the money, while the flight was only supposed to last about half an hour. So the pilots were instructed to keep circling around Seattle until the money was ready. What was intended to be a 30-minute flight turned into a 3-hour ordeal. The passengers were told that they were experiencing minor technical difficulties, which they accepted without question. Finally, the flight landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport at 5:46 p.m. Following Cooper's instructions, the plane was parked far away from the main terminal building. An airline representative approached with a bag of cash and the parachutes. After receiving the money and parachutes, Cooper allowed the passengers and flight attendants to leave the plane, but he insisted that Tina Mucklow stay behind. After the plane was refueled, it took off again, this time with only the pilots Cooper and Tina on board. Cooper gave the pilots detailed instructions, including the destination flight speed and angle. He ordered them to fly towards Mexico City at an altitude of 10,000 feet, with the wings at a 15-degree angle and as slowly as possible. The pilots warned that flying in such a manner would make it difficult to reach Mexico City due to fuel limitations, but Cooper insisted they fly according to his directions. Then Cooper instructed Tina to go to the cockpit and lock the door behind her. Once alone, he prepared to jump from the plane. A few minutes later, a warning light flashed in the cockpit, indicating that the rear staircase had been deployed. The Boeing 727 had a unique feature, an aft staircase at the back. Cooper deployed the stairs and jumped out with the money and parachutes. The pilots and flight attendants did not witness the jump, as they were locked in the cockpit and there was no way for them to see outside. At 8:13 p.m., the pilots noticed that the back of the plane suddenly tilted upwards, prompting them to recalibrate and level the aircraft. They continued flying until they reached Reno, where they landed safely. Authorities were informed and investigators searched the plane, but found no trace of Cooper. The only items left behind were a tie with a clip, some torn pieces of parachutes that Cooper had used to cover the money, and personal items like the cigarettes he had been smoking during the flight. Smoking was permitted on planes at that time.
This is D.B. Cooper's ticket in the name of Dan Cooper. He needed a way to secure the money on his bag.
The investigators conducted a thorough examination and found 66 unidentified fingerprints that did not belong to any crew members or passengers. The suitcase containing the bomb, the bag of money, and the parachutes were all missing, just like Cooper. From that day onward, the FBI launched an extensive investigation to find Cooper, which continued for 45 years and was officially closed in 2016. Yet many questions about the case remain unanswered. This hijacking is considered one of the greatest mysteries for the FBI. Who was Cooper? What happened to him after he jumped? Was the money ever recovered? There are countless questions surrounding this case. Two interesting points about this incident stand out. First, during the hijacking, none of the other passengers knew they were being hijacked. Remarkably, no one was harmed, which many attribute to Tina Mucklow. She is often called the hero of this story because she managed to keep Cooper calm, ensured his demands were met, and prevented any panic that could have led to injuries. The plane's co-pilot later remarked that she was calm and collected, making her the best person to be next to someone committing such a criminal act. The second interesting aspect is that most people refer to this case as the mystery of D.B. Cooper, even though his real name was Dan Cooper. Initial investigations indicated that when Cooper jumped from the plane, he had strapped the cash around him, weighing about 10 kilograms. He used 2 parachutes to jump, one in front and one in back. Authorities believed he jumped in the southwest area of Washington state, which is filled with dense forests, lakes, and canyons. At first, investigators thought survival was unlikely due to the conditions. Jumping from 10,000 feet in pitch darkness and wearing unsuitable clothing made it hard for Cooper to see anything while falling. The wind speed at that time was estimated to be around 320 kilometers per hour, complicating the jump further. Additionally, the cold temperatures in November could have been dangerous, especially if he landed in a lake where hypothermia would set in quickly. The weight he was carrying would have made it even harder for him to swim. Some reasons later came to light that make us think Cooper might have survived his jump. After Cooper's hijacking got widespread attention, several other hijackers tried to copy his tactics. At least 5 people did similar hijackings, and all of them survived after jumping from the planes. One of these hijackers was Martin McNally, who took over a plane on June 24, 1972. He used the same method as Cooper and demanded $500,000. When the plane took off, he jumped using a parachute. In McNally's case, the plane was flying at about 400,500 kilometers per hour when he jumped, which was twice the speed Cooper faced. Despite this, McNally survived by using a reserve parachute. Another hijacker, Richard LaPointe, copied Cooper's style in January 1972. He wore similar clothes and successfully jumped, landing safely in the snow. It doesn't matter that both of these hijackers were later caught. Their stories helped investigators understand that if these people could survive in worse conditions than Cooper, then it was possible that Cooper himself survived that night. It's especially noteworthy that when Tina Mucklow gave Cooper the parachutes, he told her she didn't need to read the instructions because he already knew how to use them. Once the FBI started considering that Cooper might still be alive, their next step was to search the area where he jumped. In fact, the police began searching the woods the day after the hijacking. They were looking for body pieces of parachute or even a 20 bill. Earlier, I mentioned that the money given to Cooper was special. It consisted of 10,000 20 bills totaling $200,000, and the bank had noted the serial numbers. The FBI circulated these numbers to banks and casinos nationwide, asking them to report any sightings of those bills. However, finding Cooper proved increasingly difficult because there were many variables to consider. What was the wind speed during the flight? How dark was it? Where was the plane when Cooper jumped? At what altitude did he deploy his parachute? And where could the parachute have landed? Investigators estimated that he might have landed near Lake Merwin in Washington state. To test this theory, the FBI conducted an experiment using the same type of aircraft and similar conditions, pushing a 91-kilogram sled out of the back stairs. Based on where the sled landed, they hoped to get a better idea of where Cooper might have landed. As a result, local police began going door to door in the area, asking residents questions. They also used boats on Lake Merwin and Lake Yale. and one company even sent a submarine down 200 feet into Lake Merwin to search. They were looking for money parachute pieces or a body, but found nothing. Eventually, investigators published the serial numbers of the notes in local newspapers, offering $1,000 to anyone who found one. This offer lasted for 3 years, but no notes were discovered. Now let's fast forward to 1979, 8 years after the hijacking. A pilot named Tom Bohan contacted the FBI. He worked for Continental Airlines and had been flying about 4 minutes behind Cooper's plane and 4,000 feet higher on the night of the hijacking. Tom recalled the intense storm that night and said he had never seen anything like it in his career. He believed the FBI's calculations about Cooper's drop zone were off by 80 degrees. Being in the air that night, he had a better idea of where Cooper might have landed and suggested that the FBI search near the drainage area of the Washougal River. A few months later, Tom's suspicions were confirmed when an 8-year-old boy found some 20 bills on the bank of the Columbia River. Some of the bills were still in bundles held together with rubber bands.
Hijacker D.B. Cooper, the first break in the only unsolved airplane hijacking in United States history, came on a Columbia River beach. 8-year-old boy dug up the shreds of $3,000 on Sunday.
When police checked the serial numbers, they confirmed that these were indeed the same bills given to Cooper years earlier. Another search was conducted in the area, but they could only recover $5,800 of the original amount. Tom's theory about Cooper landing near the Washougal River was proven correct as the money was found downstream of it. After this discovery, the FBI searched the area again, hoping to find Cooper's body or pieces of his parachute, but came up empty. One FBI agent, Richard Tosop, believed Cooper may have drowned in the river's cold water that night. Interestingly, the 8-year-old boy who found the bills was rewarded with some of them, and in 2008, when he grew up, he sold 15 of those 20 bills in an online auction for $37,000. Cooper's case was so famous that people were willing to pay a high price for those notes. Another big question that arises is about Cooper's true identity. The FBI had very little to help answer this. They found a tie-and-tie clip that belonged to Cooper. The tie clip was golden, and scientists discovered some microscopic particles on it. In March 2009, a research team began studying these particles, which suggested that Cooper might have worked in a chemical or metal manufacturing plant or even in aeronautical engineering. They believed he could have worked for Boeing because the titanium used in the tie clip was commonly found in aircraft manufacturing at that time.
Periodical table of clues, say scientists, suggests Cooper had access to a manufacturing company that made airplanes, like the one he jumped from. Perhaps a company with a connection to Boeing.
In the first year of the investigation, the FBI interviewed passengers and crew members to create a sketch of Cooper. The first sketch, made on November 28, 1971, didn't accurately represent him according to the witnesses. It took another year to create a second sketch, which also wasn't very accurate. On January 2, 1973, the FBI released a third and final sketch of Cooper. After seeing this new drawing, an air hostess confirmed that it was a good likeness. This sketch allowed people to speculate more about Cooper's true identity and background. Larry Carr, who led the investigative team from 2006 to 2009, believed Cooper might have been an aircraft cargo loader in the Air Force, as they received basic jump training and understood parachute deployment. Based on these theories, the FBI compiled a list of over 800 suspects, any of whom could potentially be Cooper. However, 20 of these suspects were taken more seriously, and a few had interesting stories. One of these suspects was Richard McCoy, a Vietnam War veteran. Just 5 months after Cooper's hijacking, he pulled off a similar plane hijacking. He demanded 4 parachutes and $500,000, mirroring Cooper's demands. After getting the money, he deployed the rear stairs of the plane and jumped out. Unfortunately for him, the FBI caught him just 2 days later, and he was sentenced to 45 years in prison. They initially thought he might be Cooper, viewing this as his second hijacking attempt. In 1991, a book titled D.B. Cooper, The Real McCoy, was published by former FBI agent Russell Calling. This book mentioned that when McCoy's family saw Cooper's tie-and-tie clip, They believed they belonged to him. However, when McCoy was asked if he was Cooper, he neither confirmed nor denied it. After serving 2 years in prison, McCoy tried to escape, leading to a shootout in which he was killed. After all this information, you might think the mystery has been solved. But there are still more twists in this story. The FBI does not officially consider McCoy to be D.B. Cooper for 2 main reasons. First, the description of Cooper based on the sketches does not match McCoy. Second, the FBI found evidence placing McCoy in Las Vegas on the night of Cooper's hijacking as he returned home to his family the next day. Because of this evidence, it's clear that McCoy cannot be Cooper. The FBI eventually closed the case, but the mystery of D.B. Cooper remains unsolved to this day. Thank you very much.